Malatesta, are you there?
I'm here.
Welcome to the D Up with Double D podcast, the 1st one ever. I thought I might come out of the basement. I'm not much of a content provider. I've been more on the sales side for 12 years. So this is maybe my first official piece of content ever.
You were also a fabulous wedding DJ. So that is content if you really, you can count that as content.
Boy, if you could have seen me in my prime. So, hey, I'm glad you're here today. I just wanted to start my podcast series. My goal is to talk to coaches and tournament providers and athletes, primarily in the basketball space. But every once in a while, I want to step outside that circle and interview some people that are important in my life. You're obviously one of them. I've known you since 2008. And I'm not sure how often you get interviewed, but I think you have a compelling story. So, just wanted to get to know your background or let the VYPE audience think about Matt Malatesta. But before we get started, what's your take? Yeah, what's your take on this whole COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic that we live in 2020?
Honestly, for people that know me, they know that I'm not a rule follower per se. And I was not a big COVID. I wasn't bought into the whole COVID-19 thing, but it's starting to catch. It's got legs. This story has legs, as they say. This could go on a while, which is really a drag for the business that we're in for sure.
Have you ever seen anything like this? The only thing I can compare it to might be Hurricane Ike. And you'll recall, you and I launched VYPE back in 2008 in August, and I think Ike hit in September. And you and I were thinking, oh, this is a great time to launch VYPE.
And, 9/11 was kind of that moment also. Like, you're just like, you can't move away from the television. You just got to gobble so much news up just to it's unprecedented. And this for sure is the most unprecedented event that we've ever had in our lifetime, I think.
So people know you as the Chief Content Officer for VYPE Media. Before we dive into the world of high school sports, tell my audience, which is zero as of today, and we're building that, by the way.
It's building.
I have nobody. Yeah, I'm hopeful after we launch this video, we might have 10. Who knows?
Yeah.
But tell my audience of zero about your background. You're from Houston. You went to Climb Forest. You went to LSU.
So grew up, just my parents were LSU. They're Louisiana transplants. They got over here. That's kind of dating way back. But I was a little bit of an undersized kid, as again, like 5'8". But I love sports. My next door neighbor was a guy named Bobby Vasella. He worked for CNN Headline News, and I used to watch him. He was much older than me, and I used to watch him. He graduated from UT, and I'd see him on the news. I was like, that's unbelievable. And then he took me to like a Houston Oilers game, which is dating me, and I got to go on the field. I'm like, man, this is something I would definitely be interested in. I get to college, go to LSU, go through Rush, that whole thing, and then happened to mention that story that I kind of had an interest in, journalism, covering sports, and a guy that rushed me 6 months later says, hey, man, come on, you want a job? And I'm like, I'm in college. I don't know that I want a job. But he's like, how about a student job? You can cover LSU sports with me. I am the sports editor of the Daily Reveille. And I'm like, this sounds awesome. Got into that. I was there at the same time.
No experience prior to that.
No experience. Got into it, just had a passion for sports and the access. I was all about the access. You could talk to players you see on TV and coaches and stuff like that. You kind of get starstruck at the very beginning, but I was there, an incoming freshman, at the same time that Shaquille O'Neal was there, and that was amazing because I got to basically cover his rise of kind of media stardom. Like, it was kind of cool. Dale Brown was the head coach there, and Shaq was very raw at the time because Chris Jackson was there, amazing, played in the NBA, the number 3 overall draft pick when he came out. Stanley Roberts, a big guy there. But Shaq had that star power, and people would come in town. Bill Walton, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson. They would just come in town and kind of see this kid and mentor him a little bit when he was a freshman. And I'm like, man, this guy could maybe be somebody. But this guy was also hanging out at the bars, right? He was kind of like a bouncer for, you know, the local bars in town, because everybody knew he was underage because he was so young for his grade. So that was really a fun time, and that really got my feet wet to the national media world, covering a guy like Shaquille O'Neal.
If Shaq had a fake ID, it wasn't really going to work because people kind of knew who he was. What you're
Kind of a
saying?
thing. He was definitely kind of a thing at that time. And then, you know, I was also there when LSU won a World Series, got to go up to Omaha and see that experience, and, you know, slept in our car for a couple days because we were college kids. We didn't have any money, and we got media passes so we could eat and we could see great baseball, but we didn't have a place to stay. So we just slept in our cars. LSU won a national championship that year. And then I just kind of kept going with it. You know, upon graduation, became a sports information director, basically a PR person for Lamar University in Beaumont. Was there for a year. I didn't really feel it, and just didn't think that was going to be my thing. Went back home to Houston, and then started working with Bobby Burton, who is from Houston. Bobby Burton is the founder of Rivals.com. He was at Adobe High School, local guy. So he's like, hey, I'm moving to Nashville. I'm selling my company. Can you cover the city of Houston and part of the state of Texas? I'm like, sure, it'd be awesome. I love recruiting. I got into that, became a national analyst for Rivals for about a decade. At the same time, wrote a book about North Shore High School in 2003. They had never won a state championship. David Amon, another fellow Louisiana guy, kind of took me in and gave me another great access into their program. I got to go there, 2 or 3 days a week and just see the inner workings of his program. And they won a state championship when I was there. Quarterback named Bobby Reed. He went on to kind of fame, infamy, and then a guy, Derek Dusek, calls me up and says, hey, I'm just trying to start up a high school sports magazine in Houston. I'm like, hey, I'm your guy. 13 years later, baby.
The pause button on that. I was living in Wichita, Kansas at the time, and I was in the media world and published a couple of lifestyle magazines in old Wichita, Kansas. And one day I see this magazine called VYPE. It was called something different back then. It ultimately became VYPE soon thereafter. And I saw it on a free magazine rack, and I thought to myself, now what's this? This is pretty cool. And we discovered that it was a group out of Tulsa that had created a franchise model, and they were selling territories throughout the United States. And the company I worked for, we thought, okay, if we're going to launch a high school sports media company, there's probably 3 states, maybe 4, you'd want to do that. California, Texas, Florida, maybe Georgia, right? And so Texas being relatively close to Kansas, they had already sold the market rights to DFW. We asked, what about Houston or South Texas? That was available. And the company I worked for at the time, a holding company, we bought the rights. Then the next step was, okay, who are we going to find to be our content leader? And there actually was Google back in 2008. And your name just kept coming up everywhere on Rivals.com. We're like, all right, I got to call this guy. So you're right. I called you. And what's the name of the restaurant we met in Tomball?
I think it was Goodson's out in Tomball, Texas.
So I fly in, meet you. I think I flew back to Wichita the same day, and the CEO of our company said, how'd it go? I said, we've got our guy. And I can remember him asking me, well, don't you need to interview other candidates? I said, no, you're going to find another geek like this. This dude knows everything there is to know about high school sports in Houston. Let's just get him. And the rest of it. So, but
yes.
Prior to that, I remember sitting down and talking to you that day in Tomball, and you had mentioned Randy McElvoy, who's a close friend and ally of you and I, sports director at KPRC here in Houston. You had already been talking to him about publishing a high school magazine before I called. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, we were in Beaumont, and I was at Lamar, and he was he was in Beaumont. He was the anchor for the sports anchor for one of the stations in Beaumont. We kind of super cool guy. Really, both of us were really young in our careers, and we always he really had a passion for high school sports. I always remember that. And then he went on to Dallas and worked for, I believe it was Fox Southwest. And then he got back to Houston, and it was just perfect timing. When he got back, he was there for a couple of years. He again continued to, show his passion for high school sports, and we made him our editor at large. And he wrote a weekly column, and we had a great relationship with KPRC. And he's kind of the guy as it relates to local news here in Houston as it relates to sports. And he's been great. And just some media people are just he's like first class, dude. He is a first class guy. If you ever meet him, like catch him on the street or whatever, super outgoing, super genuine guy. So he really kind of helped us as we launched the product.
Yeah, I'm not sure everybody knows our story. So you were VYPE's, I guess, technically second hire. Maybe I was the first, but doing this from Wichita. And really, then you built your own team here locally. I remember traveling back and forth from Texas to Kansas. And I remember just wanting to be a part of what you all were doing down here. And my wife and two kids, long story short, we ended up moving to the Houston area. You live in the Woodlands, and we thought it was a good idea that we don't live close together so we could cover more territories. I strategically went to Fulshire, which at the time was in no man's land outside of Katy. And you and I continued to work for the company that employed us from '08 to 10. And then in 2010, you and I did a management buyout, and we bought the franchise rights to VYPE and ran that for 7 years before we sold the company. But talk about just, getting the product launched, and what was the reaction from the community, because you were really the first guy on the ground, and from the first photo shoot to the kids' reaction to the coaches and the ADs and the superintendents. Houston had never seen anything like that.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. Like when I came on board, because people are like, "You're gonna do this full time," and I'm like, "Yeah," because in while I was working for Rivals and writing a book, I also was a kind of a medical sales rep for a company called Fisher Scientific. So I'm like, man, all right, I'm going for it, going all in, and it just kind of worked out perfect. I knew that there was kind of a need for it because I'd seen the Houston Chronicle, just in just local media, just not have the bandwidth to cover high school sports. And man, we got into it. We also, another kind of a guy that was helpful was a guy named Todd Freed, who's with Cube 55 or Cube 57. And he was kind of instrumental in, helping promote VYPE as well. Wanted to get on board, saw what we were doing. But man, there was just, the cool part is I was so entrenched in football. It really opened my eyes to see there's so many great stories and so many great kids, coaches, parents, etc. in other space: basketball, baseball, softball, volleyball. Here's two people you do not upset, having done this for over a decade. You do not get cross with volleyball mom and softball dad. Those people are wildly passionate about their girl. If you spell somebody's name wrong, it is on. So, just kind of being able to expand what I was covering was really a challenge and really interesting. And the people loved it because nobody was covering volleyball, tennis, and cross country. So I'm thinking, okay, Matt, what can we do when we launch this magazine to have a splash? What is the splash? And I don't know what came over me, but I was over at Westfield High School, and right across from Westfield High School is a recording studio and record label called Swisher House Records, and they were it. Back in the day, they were the thing. Paul Wall, Slim Thug. They had a really good group of like rappers that were coming out of there having success. I'm like, I'm just gonna knock on the door. So I go over there, knocked on the door. I open the door, and it's like the music just went like, what is this dude doing?
Needle on the record.
What is this guy doing at our place? But they were super cool. The guy that kind of ran it was a guy named G Dash. So he had me back in his office. And I'm like, hey, here's what we're doing. We're launching this. Can we get an artist to be on our cover, our first ever cover shoot? This was 2 months in advance. He's like, no problem. I'm like, I would like to have Paul Wall if possible. And he's like, I'll see what I can do. So I'm getting the photo shoot set up. It was shot at Hobby Airport in these airplane hangars, super cool cars and stuff. And I got a call like right before, and it's G Dash, and he's like, man, I got some bad news. I'm like, oh no. Paul Wall can't make it. He's in Vegas doing something, but I got Slim Thug. I'm like, all right, that sounds awesome. He had just done a thing with Destiny's Child. He was like kind of on the come up. So we're at the photo shoot, and I'm thinking, man, it's getting late. Is this guy going to show up? He shows up, comes rolling in this like candy purple kind of low riding Escalade. And then he pulls up, and all the kids are like, their eyes are big as saucers. And the car just lowers, and he gets out of the car. And this dude is like 6'7". I was not expecting that. He comes in, and it was like all these football players. It was like a Britney Spears concert, went off. They loved this guy. Super appreciative that we had him at the shoot. He shoots our front cover. Super cool, signing autographs, taking pictures, etc. And that's how we launched the first ever VYPE with Slim Thug on the cover of our magazine.
Yeah, dead set right in the middle. Yeah, I remember being back in Wichita at the time and showing again our holding company what our first cover was going to be, and they're like,
"What?
Really? Like, who is this Mr. Thug Man?" And like, I don't know, but the kids love him.
What's funny is you've got on that cover was Michael Brockers, who still plays for the Rams. Yeah, plays for the LA Rams. You had Russell Shepard, who's also still in the league, and you had a guy named Niall Davis who played at Arkansas, and he was in the NFL for several years. And it was really cool to look back and see some of those guys. Randy Bullock, who was the kicker for the Houston Texans for some time, but just to see who was in that first inaugural magazine and where they are today, that's kind of the funnest part of this job, is seeing where these kids end up. We shot Cassidy Cook in the natatorium, her coming out the water. Greatest cover we may have ever shot. She ends up going to the Olympics. She's also was preparing for the Olympics this upcoming summer. Of course, it's been delayed, but just seeing where some of these kids have ended up in their careers is just awesome.
Yeah, so that leads me to my next point, kind of the VYPE Hall of Fame. And I know there's no way you can list all of them, but when you think about the number of athletes that went on to play, we're not even talking about high-level collegiate athletics, but NFL, MLB, NBA, the Olympics. What are some big-time names come to mind for you in terms of, where are they now?
Well, I mean, the one that really started it all and all the buzz was a guy named Sam Mcguffey. I know you probably remember him. He had that big leap. He goes to Michigan, comes back to Rice. He ends up being on the U.S. Olympic bobsled team. He was just a freak athlete, super cool kid. And to see, he's still out there today in the business world. Really great to see him flourishing. Cassidy Cook is one, Olympian, but probably, there was kind of a Mount Rushmore of basketball that we were starting to develop, right? The guy that really emerged from the Harrison twins to Jared Vanderbilt was none other than De'Aaron Fox. And what this guy has done at the NBA level and what he did at Kentucky was amazing. I don't know that I saw that coming, that he was going to be that successful in the NBA, because he was so skinny. But, dude, this guy has a great personality, a great guy. And I'm so happy to see him doing so well. You have Damian Square, who plays for the Chargers. You've got, Brockers, who plays. Mike Evans is another great name from Galveston. We had him in our basketball photo shoot. We didn't even have our football photo shoot. He was one of the last guys picked up by Kevin Sumlin in that recruiting class. He ends up being a superstar. Just prior to when we started, Andrew Luck, of course, was an amazing player. Daniel Mingden on the baseball side. He's one of the closers for the Oakland A's. And you talk about girls, just how many girls are playing collegiate and now professional volleyball. Molly McCade from Klein Collins. She won a national championship for the University of Texas. I think she plays in Turkey. But another couple of girls on that side was Brittany Griner. I mean, how could you forget her? She was kind of the one that was the first to be dunking the ball, and she had a tremendous career at Baylor, wins a national championship, and now plays in Europe. You got the Ogwumike sisters, who are now on ESPN. She was Shanae was on our cover. She's like now an anchor on ESPN. So, man, just the list goes on, and it's cool because we were kind of their first entrance into the world of media, because we were catching these kids at freshmen, sophomore, juniors in high school, still doing the same thing as it relates to recruiting, and still what we do now. I think a guy that could be a game changer is this kid from the Woodlands, his name's Drew Romo, who could be a top 30 draft pick in Major League Baseball when they have their draft. Switch hitting, power, hit for average catcher. So that's kind of the next guy in the future that we might see, become a household name across the country.
You made a really good point that VYPE really is the first experience or stop for these kids in terms of engaging media. And it's interesting. They're still so young. They welcome that. As they advance and go into college in professional sports, in some ways they get so tired of media, right? Because they're just constantly hounded all the time, for a word bite or sound bite. And there's something humbling about that, seeing a 14 to 18-year-old kid they're working on how they look into a microphone or to a camera, and how they respond. I think that some of the cool things that I've witnessed at some of our photo shoots and media days over the years.
They can be really bad. You could see their evolution with their being comfortable with the media as they get to their senior year. But at the beginning, they don't have anything to say, and they're super nervous.
Talk about how VYPE differs from other media, local and national companies across the country, from the local newspaper to a Max Preps to USA Today. Where is VYPE's niche? What is it that we do that would be uniquely different from everybody else?
Well, it's just the volume of coverage first, and the diversity of coverage from girls and guys sports. Our tagline is like from football to water polo and everything in between. I mean, we are covering everything, human interest stories. We're covering the games and playoff predictions and rankings and stuff like that. We're doing a lot of polls, but it's just the volume and granular coverage that we do that really kind of sets us apart. It's the neighborhood kid, right? And Houston is a gigantic neighborhood to cover. But that's kind of what we try and do is to have a neighborhood feel to a macro regional magazine that's in one of the biggest cities in the country.
Talk about the evolution of the VYPE campus program. Because of that desire for that content, VYPE now partners with districts and private schools to provide them their own exclusive athletic news. And I think it's a magical program. You and I often joke that, why didn't we think about that 4 or 5 years ago, right? But what's your take on that program and how it's impacted some of these communities that may not get a lot of coverage from the local newspaper?
Well, again, people always complain to us, hey, how come you don't cover our kids more? Well, Houston's a big city, and it was some of the elite that we were covering, because it was just a kind of a one-man show. and some contractors, doing the coverage. We've expanded that and built this model where we cover our campus model. We cover a district or a school or a private school, like a tiny private school. We covered them throughout the year and basically become their sports information department / PR firm. We go, every school out there in district is sitting on a mountain of content that never sees the light of day. We're the ones in there and kind of dig it out. We find the great stories. We take the great photos. We do, great interviews, great live broadcasts. So we're able to go in and basically build a sports network for a district, a school, a small private school. That's kind of the wave of the future and where our business will eventually end up.
All right, we're going to talk about your favorite topic. And no, I'm not talking about
LSU football.
Recruiting. Well,
yes.
That might be your favorite topic. Talk about recruiting and where it is today. What advice would you give, young athletes as they select their school? The transfer portal today is at an all-time high. It seems like the thing to do is to go test the waters at a university, and then, you know what, let's just go try something else. It's very hard to find someone that kind of stays there for 4 years. What's your take?
Well, man, here's my take. You have to be realistic with your skill set. Okay, that could be for any sport. Like, everybody wants to go to the high D1, Texas, Alabama, LSU, Florida State, whatever. But it's not fun to sit the bench. So everybody just wants to play. You really have to research a couple things. How many people are ahead of you in that particular position? And how they value you in that position. Do they think, okay, you're going to be an outside linebacker, or maybe you're an inside linebacker, or maybe you're a safety that's going to grow and become a linebacker. They have to really, the people that do the best job recruiting are the people that can connect and say, here is my tailor-made plan for Joe Smith coming to my school. So you really have to have a plan and have kind of an advocate on your side, and that's the assistant coach. You have to build that relationship with the assistant coach and your position coach to really have a shot. Because you're right, the portal's is a complete game changer. What was the game changer for in the world of recruiting was it used to be letters, and then it was text messaging, and now the reach for social media is so all recruiting is now done on Twitter for the most part. So the communication is different. The portal has completely changed everything, whether it be basketball or football. So what I hear kids say over and over again is you have to pick the right school fit for you, because coaches come and go. Those coaches might not be there. You got to pick the right school, the right kind of education plan that you want, and the fit as it relates to you getting onto the field.
Great advice for recruits. What advice would you give to students that have a passion for sports journalism like you did, and what paths to take to have a career in sports?
We have a program called VYPE, which is really cool. It's kind of an ambassador program that we kind of mentor kids that want to get into this business. We give them opportunity. We give them, press passes to go cover stuff. But my advice to people that want to be in that business is you have to be versatile. You have to have everything in your arsenal, right? You have to be able to take photos, kind of. You have to be able to understand social media a lot. You have to be able to write. You have to be able to kind of see what you would like to see in like a feature film. So there's so much things. It used to be, oh, I'm a writer. That's all I do. I'm a columnist. Done. No, you've got to be able to do everything. And if you if you want to get into this business, do internships, whether it be, a social media, director, or a writer or a photographer. Might not be great in photography, or learn about, video, film. What we're doing right now, this is the future, right? Zoom is the future. So it's going to be a medium. You have to understand how to kind of bring all of it together and become that total package.
All right, you're doing great. We're going to wrap up with a couple of fun questions.
Let's go.
Talk about maybe what are some of your life career goals beyond VYPE? You've been in the high school sports space for so long. I think anyone's trying to kick you out.
Right.
Is this something that you want to continue to do? Is there a next level? Because sometimes you see that high school coach, they want to become a collegiate coach, or
right.
a collegiate coach wants to, dip their toes into the pro arena. What's that look like for you?
Well, I would love to do something on a national basis and just cover, see if VYPE can become a national brand. Okay. That would be great. The other piece I think that's coming is, for our business, is to be able to do a Netflix-ish type feature, 5, 6, 10 episodes, follow a kid, follow a team, and just go really inside. Everybody's consuming media that's kind of not reality TV, but documentary style. I would love to do a kind of a documentary following a kid or superstar, a team, etc., and just kind of produce something like that over a season. That would be really cool. I've done the book piece where I chronicled a team over the season, being that North Shore 2014, but I'd love to do it visually. That would be something that would be great.
You could become the Joe Exotic in Tiger King.
Bro, that would be my dream. If there's a dream, that would be the one. No, I'm obsessed, right?
All right.
Tiger King. All right, hang on a sec. Tiger King, nuts. The other thing that's nuts was Cheer, the documentary of Cheer. I was kind of in that world with my daughters. That was really, really well done. Last Chance U. We've had kids that are on Last Chance U that were stars on Last Chance U. This Netflix world is just, it's fire, man. And that's the next great bastion. Derek, the next great bastion for this, we got to talk about the best coaches in the city of Houston and the impact they have on hundreds of thousands of kids during their career.
That sounds like a great episode number 2. All right. So final question that I know a lot of the guys at work want to know the answer to. Why do you go to Starbucks 5+ times a day?
It's my comfort food. It's my comfort drink, man. Everybody's got it, I am obsessed, and I have like their double reward program, and it's a shaken white tea, 1 stevia, extra ice, twice a day. That's what I do.
You're probably the guy that pulls up to the drive-thru and you just say, "Yo, this is Mala," and they just know what your order is, right?
I'm like Norm at Cheers, man. The old show Cheers. They're like, "Matt, he's back again. It's been 3 hours."
Well, you've been great. Appreciate you being my first subject in the interview world. And props to you. You do for high school sports. I know you hear that a lot from coaches and ADs and parents, but truly someone that's been your business partner for over 12 years. You're one of the best in the business. And man, keep up the good work. And all the best to you and your family during this COVID-19 era that we live in. It's just crazy to me.
Thank you. It's been an amazing ride. Me and the Double D, we've had quite a ride with this.
All right, appreciate you.
All right, we'll see you.
That's right. You got to D up. It's coming to the Double D house. So, all right, man. I'll see you on Zoom.
That's right.
Out.